Hey guys, and welcome back. I am PrimeRose and this is my channel. On today's video of painting the island, I've decided to do a painting of a couple of ruins that are in Porto da Cruz. But before we go into our video, if you like my content and you like the videos that I do, remember to click on that subscribe button down there. Okay, let's do this. On the north coast in the parish of Porto da Cruz are the ruins of a fort that was built by the governor of the archipelago, Duarte Sodré Pereira, in the early 18th century. These curious ruins are what remains of the fort's guardhouse and residence. When arriving at the parish of Porto da Cruz, the image of the old fort is in appearance quickly contemplated, given its elevated location. Unfortunately, this small fort did not have a major impact on the island's history, having only 3 important events from its creation to its end. We know that, due to its dominant position over the bay, it was erected in 1708. In 1713, João de Vasconcelos Uzel was appointed as its captain. In 1804, it was dismantled, and its garrison was ordered to work on clearing the Mexico stream. Currently, the property is vacant. The remaining ruins were originally made with some hard grey stonework, still being preserved in the frames of the spans. These ruins are a fine example of military architecture that existed in the 18th century on the island, on top of a hillock with a dominant position over the bay of Porto da Cruz. It is a small rectangular building. It was built in basaltic stone masonry with lime mortar, which was a tendency at that time. On the lintel of a door is an inscription engraved with the date 1793, which could be the possible date of its rebuilding. This little fort was dismantled because the guards were no longer needed there, since they started helping rebuild the stream of Mexico. This was due to the Great Flood of 1803, which was the most severe natural calamity on record to devastate the island of Madeira since its settlement. This natural disaster, which occurred on October 9, 1803, resulted in the death of hundreds of people, reaching almost to 1,000 dead islanders, mainly in the municipalities of Funchal, Mexico, Ribeira Brava, Santa Cruz, and Calheta. Its destructive capacity would only be equaled 206 years later, on February 20, 2010, by another terrible and fateful storm. The event of October 9, 1803 was one of the most fateful days in the history of Madeira Island. But the conjuncture of events that led to it began around 10 to 12 days earlier, a period during which the island still experienced intense precipitation, although intermittent. On the morning of October 9th, at around 8 o'clock, a period of precipitation began, although not very strong, which have lasted for 12 hours until 8 o'clock that night. Shortly after 8 p.m., the weather conditions worsened and the precipitation levels increased significantly, followed by a stronger wind that began to blow. At around 8:30, the situation became more severe and the flow of the streams increased noticeably until, finally, it violently overran its banks. The conditions were created for the perfect occurrence of one of the worst natural disasters that ever hit the island of Madeira. At the origin of such a great tragedy was an atmospheric situation characterized by the existence of southwest wind, thunderstorms, and heavy rainfall. The lack of trees in the mountains above Funchal, clearly visible in the engravings of the time, and the lack of canalization in the streams in urban areas did act as causes for the aggravation of this catastrophe. Given the seriousness of the situation, many of the Madeiran inhabitants, surprised, were unable to escape the danger, eventually dying. Some were surprised in their flight by the strong currents that had meanwhile crept up the banks of the streams, but there were many that did not even start an attempt to escape, perishing when their own houses collapsed or even ended up crushed by the collapsed walls. In the town of Mexico, the municipality to which Porto da Cruz belongs to, it is possible to read in the parish archives that the river wall was destroyed, as well as the existing bridge, and that the water fell on the town with such intensity that it reached the height of 3 cubits in the church and in all the streets. The same archive describes as prodigious the fact that only 14 people perished, carried by the intensity of the currents or buried in their own houses. This statement helps understand how the intensity of the catastrophe really was. The historic chapel of the Lord of Miracles, at the time known as Christ's Chapel, which was one of the oldest chapels on the island of Madeira, was also affected, having been almost totally destroyed by the currents. Only the oval door and the frontispiece crosses remained from the original chapel. The image of the crucified Christ was dragged to the sea and considered lost. However, it would eventually be recovered, almost intact, by an American galley who delivered to the Cathedral of Funchal. This event, which was considered miraculous by the inhabitants of the region, would change the name of the chapel to Chapel of Jesus, the Lord of Miracles, as well as it would create a religious party, one of the largest of the island, that takes place every year on October 9th in honor of the Lord of Miracles. In addition to the Chapel of Lord of Miracles, some churches were also damaged, as well as the archives of forums, chapels, and brotherhoods. The governor and Captain General Dom José Manuel de Câmara, given the seriousness of the events, published a notice adopting the necessary measures to lessen the effects of the catastrophe. One of the first steps taken was, of course, to seek shelter for the many people who had been made homeless. Provisional housing was made in several public buildings, state service offices, churches, chapels, forts, as well as many private houses. Another urgent measure was the prohibition on increasing the prices of consumer goods under penalty of severe punishment to be applied to the transgressors.
Wow, I just love the result that I made, right? On the video that you saw me painting, you see that this part is a little more darker than it is right now. That is because after the painting was dry, the color that was here, that it was almost black, I didn't enjoy it that much, so I decided to put it a little more brownish to actually look a little more into the painting than it was before. Also, I did the same thing here and here, and I tried to put these colors from the video also a little more darker. What I really enjoyed doing in this painting was the actual house. The strokes that I put in there, I really enjoyed it. Also, here on the top, it's very subtle, but I put a little bit of blue up here. I think it looks really nice because then you have just a little bit of, not texture, but detail on the mountains, although they are so far away. Leave on the comment section down below which ancient ruin or even a monument that you enjoy the most. It can be from there, it can be from anywhere else. And if you like my video, remember to smash that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that so you can see the upcoming videos. I'll see you next time. Bye!